welcome back to another episode of the Barstoolers Premier League podcast. Now, the podcast upload schedule at the moment is all over the place because there's rounds of games seemingly every couple of days. So it's been about 10 days, I think, since the last podcast went up, if I'm correct in saying that. It's hard for myself to even remember. And a lot of things have happened. Where do you start, really? I mean, when we were recording the last one, Frank Lampard was still in a job. So we're going to be talking about Tuchel pretty in depth in this episode. I think it's important that we get our thoughts out on the new managerial situation at Chelsea so they can age really poorly. And then United were 6 points clear of Liverpool. We were top of the league. We've had a couple of negative results. Liverpool have had a couple of good results. They're signing a couple of centre-backs. So I suppose Liverpool's probably the best place to start, considering they've had a couple of impressive wins. I'm sure you lads are an awful lot happier.
Yeah, we're back on that horse and it's feeling good.
Yes, it's nice to actually see Liverpool score some goals. I have no complaints about our last two matches, really. Would be nice to keep a clean sheet against West Ham, but considering we have to play Jordan Henderson at centre half, I don't think I can give it about that too much.
We're back to normality, aren't we, Owen?
Attacking wise, yeah, we looked a little bit lackluster in the first half against West Ham, but once we got the first goal, we kind of just showed our old selves. Second goal was absolutely brilliant, as was actually all three goals were brilliant. Firmino was brilliant for the third one. Curtis Jones was very good straight off the bench, and then second goal was probably the best goal of the weekend, I thought, in Premier League. But yeah, it's actually nice to see us playing the way we are used to seeing us play.
Do you think it's sustainable, or have you just picked up a little bit of form and it'll dip again? Or was it just a bad run of form and now you're back?
I think it was just a bad run of form. Liverpool have been so consistent. That's one thing you could say about them the last 2.5 years. So it's not abnormal for them to have one sort of bad stretch, but it's good to see them back to winning ways.
Well, Trent was saying they're still the same team after the Hammers game, which, you don't know whether to interpret that as a bad thing or a good thing. I think it's probably more a good thing. They're just trying things, hasn't come off at points, but obviously our centre half situation has left us massively exposed at the back. So great that we're hopefully plugging that. But you never know. So we'll just have to wait and see. I think we could have experienced another dip, but it's hard to tell at the moment. We need to see more from Mane. That's a must.
Yeah, because Liverpool after Brighton, it's a little bit of a tricky run of fixtures, 4 or 5 games, I think it is. So I think that run of games will be quite telling. If you can come out of that with the majority of the points available, then surely you're still in the title race. But where do you think?
I hope so, especially if we manage to. If we manage to get a win against City, I mean, we'll only be 4 points behind them. You'd assume City will win their game in hand. But assuming they win their game in hand, we'll only be 4 points behind City if we win that. Of course, we've also got Leicester. I think we've got Leicester right after City as well. It's like that'll be a tough game, but like Leicester the weekend there lost 3-1 to Leeds, only drew 1-0 with Everton. So and obviously we beat Leicester 3-0 at Anfield as well. So they're there to be.
There's still a lot of funny results left in this league. Like it just could chop and change the table. Like I think it's just best to have the mantra, that horrible cliche players have in their dull interviews. Take it game by game. That's what we just need to do. Take game by game. Look, who do we have next? We'll see where we are right now. Just take game by game. I think that goes for most teams in the top half.
I like plugging the defensive problems. Well, I know we'll probably go into it on the different podcasts, but the fact that we're signing Ben Davies and Ozan Kabak, we're not going to lie to you and say we know much about either of them. They might not be great, but at least if we have to recognise centre halves in there, we can have our preferred midfield of Henderson, Fabinho and Thiago for big games like City, which I think we'd be a lot better going forward if we had that sort of a midfield. And having Fabinho in at the number 6, I think would be a lot better defensively as well. There's a few times we were getting overrun in midfield, I thought, with Wijnaldum in the 6. And Wijnaldum's had a good season as well. It's not ideal.
Yeah, James, you were saying there about taking it a game at a time, and there's still an awful lot of funny results left to be, to decide basically. And that's basically why I'm not too bothered about United's drop points recently, because if you just put Sheffield United down to an anomaly of a terrible performance, then a draw away to Arsenal, hopefully win tomorrow night or this evening, whenever you're listening to it, against Southampton, those 2 games, draw away to Arsenal, win against Southampton, hopefully is fine. just ignore Sheffield United, because City, they're going to have weird results. Liverpool are going to continue to have weird results. Chelsea have had bad results all season. Spurs looking dodgy at the moment. So, yeah, it's very, very difficult to call, really.
Oh, absolutely. But, I don't think the same can be said really for City. We'll just see what they'll be like. They've had no strikers the majority of the season, so they've been very impressive. But no De Bruyne could really hurt them in the next few weeks. But if it doesn't, if they ride out this fixture period and come out with 12, 13 wins in a row, you have to have them nailed for the title. I think it's
I think it's because now they have that back line so settled. Like the start of the season, they were kind of chopping and changing, and then they brought in Ruben Diaz. Cancelo's been at left back for a portion of the season. Like they're not relying on someone like Mendy or Zinchenko to be defending. Like they're a lot more solid, and since they've had that defensive line solidified, it's a lot better.
Yeah, you seen that actually at the weekend there against Sheffield United, because the form City are in against the Blades, you'd expect City to absolutely wipe the floor with them. And it didn't quite happen, because they dropped Joao Cancelo, they dropped John Stones, they dropped Raheem Sterling, I believe. So they only came out of that with a 1-0 win, which is ultimately all that matters when you have to rotate, just getting that result. But I think probably talk about United a little bit. Again, I'm not too worried. The performance against Sheffield United was terrible. It was terrible. There's absolutely no hiding it. And some people complain about refereeing decisions. Doesn't really cut it when the performance was that bad, to be honest. So I don't really care about that. But just ignore that. I was happy enough with the performance against Arsenal. Probably didn't do enough to win the game, but certainly shouldn't have lost it. And yeah, a win against Southampton, easier said than done, but hopefully a win against Southampton. And I think we're back on track, really, because there was just one really poor performance against the Blades.
I think that was a fair assessment, sorry, but see the Roy Keane analysis after it, like, more of the same. More of the same. Like, I don't agree with him that the Arsenal game was there to be had. I think the Liverpool game was more there to be had, and I think at the end of the day, as you said, in isolation, they're fine results. Like, these things can happen.
Yeah, like you say, like you wouldn't be too worried with the Sheffield United result unless it carried in over the other matches. But like the mistake, I know a lot was made a mistake for the second goal Sheffield scored. I was very bad defending. I watched the majority of the Arsenal game, and United looked fairly sure defensively. They didn't look like they were going to concede really. And like you said, like teams just get freak results. You can even look at City earlier on the season, like they dropped points to West Brom, and like City are barely seeing out other teams like they barely saw off Southampton, barely saw off Sheffield there. They almost got results at the end, so I don't know.
Yeah, honestly, I don't think we can dwell on United too much because, as I said, I'm not particularly worried. Now, if you're talking about a title race, then I am worried because we're not in the title race. I don't believe we ever were. I think United are a team that are very capable of going 10 games undefeated, 15 games unbeaten. You've seen that on 2 or 3 occasions when Solskjaer's been the manager, because we look to really assert ourselves in games and look to score a lot of goals so we can go on these long runs, winning runs. But is it enough for a title challenge? Probably not. But that's fine because nobody expected us to be that at the start of the season. It's all about progression. I think last season we got on 66 points. If we can bring that closer to about 75, then we're going in the right direction. So I think we'll leave it there for United for this week anyway. But one major thing I do want to talk about is Tottenham's results, because honestly, Tottenham they've been very poor last few weeks, really. I mean, they bet Sheffield United there, but they were comfortably beaten by Liverpool. They were terrible against Brighton. I was actually reading someone's article today comparing that performance to a lot of Mourinho performances when things really start to go down the drain. They're just absolutely lackluster. Obviously, no Harry Kane doesn't help that. And I think Son, he's a brilliant player, don't get me wrong, but he looks a little bit lost without his partner in crime. He really has Kane to bounce off, but now he has to do it all on his own. So I think signs are worrying for Spurs. Do you think they'll definitely get top 4?
I don't think there are real definites in this league this season. Maybe last season would have been a bit more clear, but I think the way the Premier League is shaping up this year, you can't definitely say Spurs get top 4, Leicester will get top 4, Chelsea get top 4. It really is incredibly open this year, and that's what's made the games mightn't have been terribly exciting to watch, but the overall standings makes it for a very exciting run in.
think the Kane injury, well, I don't think the Kane injury is going to have a huge impact, but even there watching the weekend, Son didn't even look as good as he normally is with Kane on the pitch. And I know Spurs got the goal after Kane went off against Liverpool, but they didn't really threaten the Liverpool goal much. In fact, I don't think Alisson had anything to do really in the second half. He couldn't really do much about the Højbjerg goal. He just struck it really well. You don't really have that target man, and like it's not even that. Kane, we said before one podcast, Kane's more than just a big
build-up
target
play
man.
as well. Yeah,
he has build-up play really good. Like he's got more assists in the league this year than De Bruyne. He's going to miss out on that creativity now as well. The next few games will probably tell, like you said with Liverpool, it'll tell where Spurs are more likely to end up.
Yeah, as you said there about no Kane, Heung-min Son without Harry Kane is basically no better than a Marcus Rashford or something like that. He's a very, very good player and always dangerous. But when you've got Harry Kane, Son knows to make those runs, he's going to get balls in behind and he's going to get chances to score. But that just completely changes without Kane. Nobody else can do that.
Do you remember Kane last season had a lengthy injury, and you think back to the Villa games to win at a late fashion 3-2, like Son did dig them out of situations, and he will continue to do that because he's got the quality. And I do believe still he's come on a bit individually. I know Kane has been instrumental in his form of late, but I think you need to see more from Gareth Bale. Like, is he completely finished as a footballer, as a human being? Does he need to just hang up the boots? Because he's really disgracing himself. Like, I hate to look at him, like just the state of him. He's a joke. Like how are people like Lucas Moura rotting away, and Gareth Bale, the terrorist, is going to get on? Like, he needs to grab a few goals or assists soon, just do something.
I think when he was first signed, Spurs fans thought it's going to be like the Gareth Bale that left Spurs, but that was six or 7 years ago. So, and a player who had as many injuries as him, it's going to be completely different. Now, he's a man that just has sheer pace, and he would have lost that over the years. I think Spurs were expecting a lot more than what they've gotten from him, but he's been poor since he's come in. I know it's only a loan deal, but he hasn't looked good at all.
It's like Paul Merson today. Everyone has their Premier League tinted glasses on with the like new Liverpool centre back rating. Like, he's all about Schalke being bottom of the table. That's just as deep as his analysis goes. And I'm not going to pretend my analysis will go any deeper than that, but that's other people don't watch La Liga, didn't watch Gareth Bale week in, week out. You know, how could they? They'd have to be in the bushes of a golf club for that.
Yeah, I remember someone I know saying, geez, United really should have went for Gareth Bale. Like, I think he still hasn't. And he's like, no. Like, I thought United were over that type of deal. You know, signing Di Maria when it was clear he didn't want to come to us, sign Falcao, panic and sign him. I thought we were over that kind of deal. Cavani I was fine with because he was only ever really going to come off the bench. I know that's kind of changed now because he's been an awful lot better than everybody expected him to be, or certainly better than I expected him. On a free, and also reports about Cavani, his character and stuff. He's just so hardworking, and I don't really know if you'd say that about Gareth Bale. So it was a very Jose Mourinho signing, to be honest, to get Gareth Bale in the loan. You see Matt Doherty, he doesn't exactly fit in, does he? Vinicius, doing the Mbappe celebration against Maureen, like that's
I have to write that. That's funny though.
Højbjerg and Reguilon have slotted in though.
Reguilon's good, but also
been good.
Real Madrid are just going to buy him back. So even
they only have first. If they go to sell, they have first refusal. I don't think it's actually a proper option to buy. Like,
no, it actually is. Yeah, and it's for
Connor, the Spurs fan, is adamant that it's first refusal if they go to sell.
Because that's why United were like, nope. Absolutely not. Because it's something like, what did they buy him for? 25 million or something? I think it's 30 million buyback. So he's probably gone at the end of the season. Well, obviously it depends on Real's situation, but you'd think he'd probably go because he has been good.
I think with Spurs, the two signs they thought were going to be lighting the team up were Bale and Doherty, and it's been quite the opposite. The two ones that have really stood out have been Reguilon and Højbjerg. I think Højbjerg's been very good. His first game against Everton, he was tragic. Very, very bad performance. But I think after that, he really picked up. And then he scored an absolute rocket against Liverpool. Could have brought them back in the game, but Liverpool were just far better. Spurs were very bad against Liverpool. We really showed our class that day.
I'm still kind of confused by Doherty signing. At the time, I was like, doesn't make sense. But Wolves played a completely different style of play to Spurs, and they kind of have those attacking fullbacks. Maybe Spurs... But like Doherty played in a system that had three central defenders, 5 at the back, where he didn't really have to cover defensively as much, and he had more freedom to travel further up the pitch. Like he got caught out for that a few times. I remember that in the Everton match where Spurs got caught out for numbers because Doherty was so far up the pitch, because he was so used to that at Wolves where he had a bit more freedom to go up the pitch and maybe not track back as much. So signs like that, it makes less sense now when I think about it. At the time, I thought it was fine, but now when you actually watch Spurs and you think about it, like he doesn't really suit the style of play.
Okay, I think we're probably done the roast of Spurs. I think that needed to be said though, because I don't think we've really talked about it recently. But we'll see how the results are over the next few games without Harry Kane. Maybe it'll pick up again. But by far the biggest thing that happened since we recorded the last podcast is Frank Lampard being relieved of his duties and Thomas Tuchel coming in. Now, I've done a bit of research into Frank Lampard's sacking, and I've taken down the notes, most notable things. So only Ben Chilwell was his signing of the summer signings. So clearly there's some weird power dynamic there going on. Lampard felt it was a toxic environment with everybody blaming each other, nobody taking accountability, and he would have walked out at the end of last season if it was any other club other than Chelsea. Lampard didn't really talk to any of the players who are sort of on the periphery of the squad, so he kind of banished Danny Drinkwater or Marcus Alonso, and those players wouldn't hear from him for weeks at a time, months at a time, which is absolutely a fault of his and maybe something he'll get better at as his coaching career goes on. Declan Rice, his pursuit of Declan Rice was ultimately something that ended up getting him sacked. The board at Chelsea were embarrassed at being linked to a player they let go when he was a youngster and signed him back for a potentially huge fee. So that absolutely didn't help him. He tried to sign James Tarkowski. He didn't really want Thiago Silva, but he just had to take him. And then going on to more so the appointment of Tuchel. Chelsea originally wanted Ralf Rangnick, the German coach, to take over until the end of the season, but he wasn't interested in it because of the short-term nature of the deal. And Thomas Tuchel didn't want the job until next season, but his arm was twisted and he had to take it. And about Tuchel, he's quite an abrasive character. He tends to fall out with club hierarchy. And I personally can't see him really working well with Marina Granitskaya. What do you think his shelf life is at Chelsea? 2 years, maybe?
The standard
not.
17
Standard
months,
Chelsea.
I think. Isn't it the median sort of time, like 16 months or something? Frank got 17 or 18. Like he did better and he had a worse win ratio than other managers that got the boot quicker than him. So I have no sympathy for Frank whatsoever.
Frank is, I think, was the 5th longest serving manager of the Abramovich era. So like there's been
there Mourinho,
Benitez, but he was interim, I suppose.
Conte was there for a few seasons. He was good.
Yeah, I don't know about Tuchel. I was never convinced about him in the first place. I thought he was quite poor. Dortmund, I got PSG to Champions League final last year. I don't know. Again, it's one of these things. Like I never watch Tuchel teams week in and week out. So like I can't really comment on it, but.
That was certainly progression for PSG, like Champions League final. I know it's a serious squad, but I think he needs a bit of credit. All those personalities to manage, like Frank can manage Marcus Alonso and Danny Drinkwater, and Tuchel had to manage Mbappe and Neymar.
In fairness, it's an 18-month contract, so he's only got until the end of next season. And I think that was something that was said on, I think it was Match of the Day. It was said on that he originally was like, he didn't want to be an 18-month contract, but then he was kind of said, well, what's the point? If I'm bad, they're going to sack me anyway. So we may as well take the short-term deal now, and if you're good, get the long-term deal. But then all that happened there is if he's good for a year or two, and then he maybe falls out of the table a little bit after he gets a full-time contract. Like, you just sack him once he starts doing bad again. There was also this thing where you signed because it was to help Havertz and Werner settle in, the German players. Not convinced by that. Not convinced he'll do that, but
he loves Rudiger, that's for sure. He loves Rudiger. And that's the German connection. Like, he wanted Rudiger PSG.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm not surprised that if that is the actual reason why they brought Tuchel in or a German manager in, but I don't think it's going to have any effect on how well he doesn't play.
So we're sending out Rangnick, as I said, and Nagelsmann.
I think Frank only lasted as long as he did in the job because he was a Chelsea legend. If that was anyone else, I think they would have been sacked a lot earlier. I can't see Tuchel future lasting that long because Abramovich wants to win leagues or Champions Leagues every year, and I can't see them winning the league next year. Might take another year or 2 or 3 years to like that. That's all dependent on like Havertz and Werner becoming good, because Werner is very, very bad. Lacazette a lot better than Werner. Olivier Watkins a lot better than Werner. He's definitely been a far better signing, but maybe that German connection could flare that man. But 2 games, 0 goals, not good. Thoughts, James?
Actually, it was only 1 game. He featured 0 minutes against Wolves, so we've given the benefit of the doubt.
Because he's no good.
He's no good. Yeah, sorry. I'm somewhat off the Werner train. I'm on the show or the Callum Hudson-Odoi train. And just one more thing on Frank. Were any of you listening to the dubiously named Gary Neville podcast that Sky have? They're like about 17 minutes.
Well, I saw it on YouTube. It was in my recommended, but I didn't watch it.
Very weird format, I have to say. Just strange podcast. But more of an aftermatch thoughts. But anyway, he was on about Frank Lampard in 2012, I believe, was left out of a squad by AVB, and him and all the other players lobbied relentlessly to get him sacked. Like, fuck him, like personal attacks and abuse. Just get this perk out. Doesn't know what he's talking about, etc., etc. And like, that is the ruthless mentality that Frank Lampard had as a professional. And you could say that's backstabbing, that's this and that, unprofessional, and it absolutely is all the above. You know, whatever, that could be kept to yourself. I think the modern player might be less vocal against the manager than that, like this dressing room at Chelsea now. So Frank ultimately has to sort of eat his words, you know, have some humble pie or whatever, and just deal with it, mate, because he's in the bin. He's never getting a good job again.
Chelsea players back then had a winning mentality. Like, there would have been John Terry, Drogba, Lampard, like these legends of the Premier League. There's no one like that in Chelsea squad. They're not winners. They haven't won anything. Azpilicueta's won a bit, but
Tuchel said he was starstruck by Azpilicueta. Stopped him in his tracks. So weird.
He was calling him Azpli, and Pulisic had to correct him. So, like, I couldn't imagine. I know Azpilicueta is like the captain, but I couldn't imagine him coming out and rallying all the players together. Like Lampard, Drogba, and Terry, they were different animals. Like, they were completely different to any of the lads in the Chelsea squad now.
They were winners, and that also brings up another point about maybe why Chelsea haven't been as successful over the last couple of years with their managerial policy in terms of you get 2 seasons absolute tops. Because back in the day, the Premier League probably wasn't as competitive. You had United, you had Chelsea, and you sometimes had Liverpool, because Arsenal were kind of out of the picture post 2007 anyway.
Yeah, you didn't really even have Liverpool. Liverpool challenged for 1 season, 08-09, and then apart from that, there wasn't much for like 5 years.
And then City were kind of on the periphery at that stage, but they weren't really challengers. But nowadays, Chelsea just don't have that great of a team in comparison to the rest. Like, as an actual team, not even talking about individuals, just week to week, what you'd expect. City are better, Liverpool are better, United are better, Spurs are probably better, Leicester are probably not far behind. So this whole chopping and change and expecting to win a title every 2-3 years, it's not really realistic. And they should probably just stick with someone for now until they have a squad that's definitely capable of winning leagues.
Leicester certainly have more team cohesion. That's huge. And they've Jamie Vardy, who's still in the goals, like that, not having a striker, chopping and changing your centre-back partners. I'm still not convinced that Thiago Silva as a medium-term option. Like, what's the point in signing him just for this season? It's going to be a stopgap solution and not develop someone like Zoom alongside of him. He might not be good enough. I just think they need an overhaul in certain areas, and no, they're not even going to get a title in the next few seasons. I can't see it.
Like Connell said, like someone like Tarkowski coming in probably would have been a better option, because he's still I actually don't know what age James Tarkowski is.
28.
He's a lot younger than Thiago Silva.
Do you know what that stinks of, Ronan?
Like,
that stinks of Frank just going for Brexit signings like me on FIFA career mode, just like good English lads.
He's a good player.
He is.
Tarkowski's very good.
Tarkowski's a very good centre half.
No, but I think it's a bit lazy. Like, you wouldn't see Klopp just sign a Connor Cody type player just because they're all right.
Yeah, because Tarkowski's a lot better than Connor Cody.
Tarkowski's actually very good.
Yeah, I was talking about this yesterday. Actually, I really rate him.
Yeah, I think you're right there, James, about the overhaul. Like, they definitely need to strengthen in a lot of positions. They're after getting a new goalkeeper. I know we kept a clean sheet the other day, but Bendy Mendy can't save a Microsoft Word document. He's very bad. They need to get another goalkeeper. I don't know about the centre backs. They definitely need one. I don't know if Zuma is a long-term option. I know he is good in spells, but he can't keep fit. They need to get Obese James out because Azpilicueta, he's getting old. They have too many attacking midfielders, attacking midfielders / wingers with like Pulisic, CH, Hudson-Odoi. Hudson-Odoi is probably the only one you keep there. Like Pulisic hasn't impressed me at all. Like he was all right when they came back from the lockdown, but I know he has had the odd injury, but I don't think he's been very good. And then Werner. Chelsea haven't been able to have that striker position on lock really since Drogba left. Like I know Costa was good, but he had the falling out with Conte. He was good for a season or 2 seasons, but they need to have that like Salah or Rashford. They're going to get 15 plus goals every season. Kane gets goals every year. That top striker in the squad who's guaranteed get them goals.
I remember back in early December when Solskjaer was coming under a little bit of pressure, there was some links with Tuchel possibly being interested in the United job, and someone sent it into the United group chat I'm in, and I actually went back to find it to make sure exactly what I said, and he sent it in, and I said, no thanks, having an irrational dislike of that man. And to be honest, it is quite irrational. I think it might just be because he was the PSG manager. He's always just seemed a bit arrogant to me. I don't know how fair that is, honestly. I'm probably bullshitting there, but I don't know. There's just always something I didn't really like about him, and his playing style is a bit hard to pin down. Clearly, he wants the fullbacks to get involved because it was winger to both fullbacks for the goals against Burnley with Marcus Alonso and Azpilicueta going on the underlap and getting balls from the wingers, Pulisic and I think it was Hudson-Odoi on the right. And his playing style has been compared to sort of a mix of Jurgen Klopp and Guardiola, which to me just sounds like you don't know what you're doing. And it's a cop-out, and it's neither, really. It's kind of nothing. I think you need to pick one or the other, kind of.
He was doing the Jurgen Klopp career trajectory, starting off at Mainz, went to Dortmund. Now he's in England.
I have a lot of time from him, especially he was quite humble in defeat. I remember owning the 5-4, obviously at Anfield. I thought he gave a good account of himself. He's quite elegant. I think he's decent. I think he looks the part, certainly.
I think that's why I never really rated him, because Dortmund did very poorly in Europe when he was there. Which was that, and I think they got knocked out by, or maybe he wasn't there for Spurs, but they never went very far in Europe with him. And obviously he was in charge of PSG for the 3-1 at the Parc des Princes at United one, I think it was. Was that Ole? Yeah, he was charged for that as well. I like last year, obviously PSG made it to the final, but the squad they have, they should be making it to the final, especially when it was over one leg. So yeah, and they got a fairly easy enough draw for the quarterfinal in the Champions League last year as well. Like Atalanta, good team, but Liverpool put 5 past them this year. I know they lost at home, but they're not.
Leipzig aren't really there either.
No,
they're a good team, impressive, but they're not quite there. You semi-final, you take Leipzig, but ultimately, exactly. In a word, do you think Tuchel will be a success? I'm going to stick my neck out in the line and say no.
No.
4 no's.
Ooh. Damning.
Tied like that. Gratislava one. Like, why did she get praise off? Whatever. Yeah, but it's obviously going to be a very difficult working relationship with her, and I don't know why she gets so much praise from publications like Tifo. I just don't agree with myself. So yeah.
Okay, and moving on to the predictions league. If you don't know, the winner of this gets a jersey courtesy of a free. And my reign on top of the league lasted for a week. I got 0 points this week. Ronan, you got 0 points. Michael, you got 2, so you've crept up a little bit. And James, you're back on top already. You got 5 points. So the games we're going to predict this week, decent set of fixtures, I think, midweek. The first we're going to predict is Wolves against Arsenal. Wolves look pretty hopeless at the moment. Maybe the signing of Willian Jose will help with that slightly. But Arsenal in a decent run of form. Wolves pretty miserable as of late. So I'm going to go with a 2-0 Arsenal victory at Molineux.
I am going to. I was probably going to say 2-0, but just to be different, I'm going to say 3-1. Yeah, probably same. Wolves don't look very good at the minute at all. William Jose didn't do much at the weekend to impress. Yeah, not great.
I would go a bit against the grain. I'm going to say 1-1 because my boys for fantasy, like Tierney and Saka, are doubtful for the game. They're not going to play. So I don't think they're going to have enough, I think. And then Wolves, I would go for more goals, but they just don't have goals in the minute. So just 1-1.
Gonna go with the Wolves win here. Just Arsenal playing a team in a bad run of form. It just smells like a Wolves win. So 1-0 here in this one.
The next game we're going to predict is certainly an interesting one. It might tell an awful lot about where one particular team is at. It's United at home to Southampton, but I'm relatively upbeat on United considering a couple of not brilliant results. So I'm going to say we're just going to get back on track. 2-0 win against Southampton. Hopefully we get back on track. 2-0.
I'm going to go for a 1-0 draw. Don't think Southampton have been brilliant the last few weeks. They're still playing all right football. They just haven't looked as good. But they've got Romeo and Ings back, so I think they'll be a little bit more of a threat. They were very unlucky at the weekend against Villa as well. 2 absolutely terrible VAR decisions. So we're going to go for 1-1.
I am going to go for 4-0 United. Back in amongst the goals in a spectacular fashion. Martial's going to be not getting a sniff because he's Martial, of course. And Rashford and Bruno are going to share the spoils. Maybe a bit of Cavani. Have that going.
Yeah, I sense United coming back in the goals. Coming out with a win 5-1 here. Fairly emphatic.
Jeez, I'm confident, but I'm not that confident. I could definitely still see us losing. But anyway, next game. Definitely a very good game, and it really could go anyway, this one. Interesting to see your predictions. Leeds at home to Everton. Leeds, great win against Leicester there. Bamford on fire. Everton, terrible loss against Newcastle. So predictably, I'm going to go with an Everton win. I just think Calvert-Lewin could have his way with those Leeds defenders, quite frankly. Leeds are at times disastrous defensively. They can definitely be got at. Calvert-Lewin's physicality will be too much. He's going to score a header. 1-0 Everton.
I'm going to go for a high-scoring one. 4-2 to Leeds. Everton looked very susceptible to the counter-attack, and they're just not good at defending. Everybody knows how bad Pickford is, and I just think Leeds' attack can get at that defence. But again, Leeds' defence isn't great, so it could be 4-2 either way, but I'm going to go Leeds.
I'm going to go for a 2-0 Leeds win, and that goes against all sort of rationality because Leeds can be quite leaky at the back. But Everton, looking at the Newcastle, looking very poor. Like DCL needs to play himself into a bit of form, and yeah, could go the way you're saying, Cone. But yeah, I want to say 2-0 on the Leeds.
I know what Leeds did have that impressive win at the weekend, but I sense the points being shared equally in this one. I was going to say 3-0, but I'm going to settle on 2-2 on this one.
Next game, another fascinating one, Brady. Villa at home to West Ham. West Ham defying everybody's expectations at the moment. Villa equally so, to be honest. They're playing slightly better football, albeit. But I'm going to go with a 1-0 Villa win. I think West Ham, their momentum has to slow down at some stage. It doesn't make sense how well they're doing. And anytime I watch Villa, I'm impressed. So 1-0 Villa.
Yeah, defensively, West Ham, they didn't look totally solid there at the weekend against Liverpool. Again, it is Liverpool and they have Salah and that, but Liverpool didn't have Mane and Firmino on from the start. So I'm probably going to go for a 2-0 Villa win. Was going to say 1-0 again, but just to be different to you. Give me the edge for when I eventually don't get that score right.
I'm going to go for a 1-0 West Ham win here, and it's going to be a Soufal 48-yarder just for the FPL, just what I ordered,
48 yards is quite ambitious, but I admire it.
It's also very specific.
Like the 48-yard goal I have in mind is Ronaldo against Arsenal in the Champions League back in the day. But anyways, back on topic. Who's going to win this one? Villa. 3-1 Villa. Olivier Watkins, absolute gun man. He's going to get it.
I hope so. He's in my fantasy at the moment. But then the final game, this is coming on the Thursday, Evelyn Tottenham at home to Chelsea. Interesting one. As we've touched upon, Spurs haven't looked convincing. Chelsea have looked a bit better under Tuchel, probably to be expected with the new manager bounce, but they're dominating possession, not creating too many chances. But, I think a big game, Tuchel's had a few training sessions with them, so I think the new manager bounce will really start to come into effect, and Chelsea will beat Spurs 2-1 at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium.
I've never in my life been more confident of a game finishing 1-1. Yeah, just Spurs will go 1-0 up and then just sit back and then concede, and then Chelsea will get found out for not being very good at attacking.
I'm going to go for a 3-0 Chelsea win. A drubbing from Havertz and co. I think Werner gets rotated out, he gets frozen out again, but it's going to be show. It's going to be the Callum Hudson-Odoi show. He's going to be putting on a masterclass, and he's probably been learning German so he can communicate with Tuchel because he was going to go to Bayern. So he's the man at the minute. That's where the points are going to go.
I'm going to go with a 1-0 Chelsea win. I can't imagine this game being terribly exciting, just the way Spurs play. It's fairly miserable. I know Harry Kane, I can't see them coming out with anything out of this one.
Yeah, so that just about wraps up this week's episode. We've tried to keep it short because it's going to be a quick turnover. This is being recorded at like 7 o'clock on Monday evening. It's going to be out in a couple hours because there's more games tomorrow starting at 6 o'clock. I think that Wolves Arsenal game is at 6 o'clock. So that's why it's a little bit shorter this week. So hopefully we'll be back to normality next week. But thanks very much for listening. The last episode was very well received. If you're watching on YouTube, liking, subscribing, always appreciated. If you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, we're on. I don't know if you did that, Ronan, but we are actually on Google Podcasts. If anybody uses that platform.
I changed the whole site and just I don't know what it's on now. I know it's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, but it's probably on all the other ones as well.
Okay, very good. So if you're on those platforms, please follow us, rate us, whatever you can do on those platforms. And we'll be back next week with another episode. Thank you for listening.